Hi, myself Mohan Golak. So today we'll see the second chapter of Module 3, that is memory management. So let us start. So this is the content of this chapter. So let's see the basics. So already you are aware of, whenever a program is created, a separate file will be created for that. So that file will be stored in the disk, and whenever you want to execute a program, that program first must be brought into the memory and then it can be executed. So the main memory and the registers, so these are the only storage that the CPU can access directly, means the CPU cannot directly access the disk storage device. So the CPU can access only the main memory and registers. So the registers access in one CPU clock, whereas the main can take the many cycles. So in between this main memory and CPU registers, we have again a separate fast memory, that is nothing but a cache memory. This is to speed up the operations, and the protection of memory required to ensure the correct operation. So in order to provide the protection, so we have the two type of registers, that is base registers and the time registers. So you can see this figure. So here this is nothing but the addressing. So we have operating system, below that we have the space for the processes, the remaining space, and here we have taken some examples. So before that, let us see what exactly this base register and the limit register. So the base register holds the smallest legal physical memory address. The limit register specifies the size of the range. For example, if the base register holds a value, here it is 30040, and the limit register is having this value, that is 120900, so then the program can legally access all the addresses from this address space, that is the starting base address 30040 till the 42090. So this is the legal memory address that the program can access. Here in this way it will protect the memory. So the protection of memory space is accomplished by having the CPU hardware compare every address generated in user mode with the registers. So any attempt by a program executing in user mode to access operating system memory or other users memory results in a trap to the operating system. So next we'll see the binding of instructions and data to memory. So we know that programs are stored on the secondary storage disk as binary executable files. In order to execute, the program must be brought into the memory and placed within a process. So depending on the memory management in use, the process may be moved between the disk and memory during its execution. The normal procedure is to select one of the processes in the input queue and to load that process into the memory. So as the process is executed, it accesses instructions and data from the memory. Eventually, the process terminates and its memory space is declared available for the other processes. So, classically, the address binding of instructions and data to memory addresses can happen at the three different stages: at compile time, at load time, at execution time. At compile time, if you know where the process will reside in memory, then the absolute code can be generated. So here, if the memory location is already known, the absolute code can be generated. For example, if you know that a user process will reside starting at a location R, then the generated compiler code will start at that location and extend up starting from that location. And if the starting location changes, then you must recompile that particular code. So the next one is at load time. So if it is not known at compile time where the process will reside in memory, then the compiler must generate the reloadable code. In this case, final binding is delayed until load time. And here, if the memory location is known, so this compile time will take care of generating the absolute code. But if it is not known, then this load time, at load time, the relocatable code is generated if memory location is not known at compile time. So the last one is execution time, that is binding delayed until runtime if the process can be moved during its execution from one memory segment to the another memory segment. Means if the process can be moved during its execution from one memory segment to the another memory segment, then binding must be delayed until runtime. Means the binding will be carried out at the runtime, because here there is a possibility of moving the process during its execution from one memory segment to the another memory segment. So whenever a user program is executing, so its processing will go through these following steps. So I think you are already aware of this. So initially whatever the program is there, that is source code, so that will pass this compiler or assembler phase. So it is going to be converted into the object model, that is object code. So after that the linkage editor will add the other modules, and as a result we have it will enter the load module. So after that the system library it is going to load, that is loader, and after that the dynamically loaded system library, that is dynamic linking. So after that we have in memory binary memory image. So this is an executable code. So after this we'll see the logical and physical address space. So an address generated by the CPU is commonly referred to as a logical address. So what is logical address? An address that is generated by the CPU is commonly referred to as the logical address. So another type is physical address. This is an address seen by the memory unit, that is the one loaded into the memory address register of the memory is commonly referred to as the physical address. Okay, what is logical address? This is the address generated by the CPU, whereas the physical address is the address seen by the memory unit. So the compile time address binding methods generate identical logical and physical addresses. So note, the logical and physical addresses are the same in compile time and load time address binding schemes. The logical address is also called as virtual address, and physical addresses differ in execution time and in address binding schemes. So next we will see the memory management unit, in short MMU. So this is a hardware device that maps the virtual address to the physical address. So in MMU scheme, the value in the relocation register is added to every address generated by a user process at the time it is sent to memory. So user program deals with the logical addresses, it never sees the real physical addresses. Means only logical addresses are available to the user programs. The user program cannot directly deal with the physical addresses. So that's why in order to map the logical address to the physical address, so we need this MMU. So let us consider an example. So here we have a dynamic relocation using relocation register. So here we have CPU. So as we know, the CPU is going to generate the logical address. So here in this example, let us consider the address is 346. So this is fed into the MMU, so where we have a relocation register. So it is going to add a particular value to this logical address in order to generate the physical address. So in our example, the value to be added is 14,000. So when this 14,000 is added to 346, the result is 14,346. So this becomes the physical address. So in this way, a mapping is carried out from logical address to the physical address by the MMU, that is memory management unit. So next we'll see the dynamic loading. So we know that routines are not loaded until it is called. So routine means a function. So already we saw that for a process to be executed, it should be loaded into the physical memory. The size of the process is limited to the size of the physical memory. So dynamic loading is used to obtain better memory utilization. Okay. And here the unused routine is never loaded. The routine means a function. We know that whenever you write a program, so that program will be stored on the disk, and whenever you want to execute, you have to call that function or call that routine, then only it will be executed. So this is a part of this dynamic loading. So it is useful when the large amounts of code are needed to handle infrequently occurring cases. So what are the advantages of this? The first one is it gives the better memory utilization. Unused routine is never loaded, as we saw. It do not need special operating system support, and this method is useful when large amount of codes are needed to handle in frequently occurring cases. So next we'll see the dynamic linking. So the dynamic linking means the linking will be postponed until the execution time. So before we see the dynamic linking, so we should know what is meant by the static linking also. So the static linking, the system libraries and program code combined by the loader into the binary program image. Whereas in dynamic linking, the linking will be postponed at the execution time. Means the linking happens only during the execution, but in static linking, the system libraries are combined with the program code itself before the execution, even before the compilation. So here we have a small piece of code that is called as a stub. This stub is used to locate the appropriate memory resident library routine. The stub replaces itself with the address of the routine and executes the routine. So operating system needed to check if routine is in process's memory address. If not, it should be loaded. So the dynamic linking is particularly useful for the libraries, and the system is also known as the shared libraries. Next we will see the swapping. So what is swapping? Swapping means, as the name itself indicates, it is moving a process from one memory segment to the another memory segment. Means here the process can be swapped temporarily out of memory to a backing store and then brought back into memory for continued execution. Means we know that in multiprocessing system the number of processes will be executed, but let us consider for some process maybe the required resources are not available, so it is not possible to execute that process. So at that time, instead of waiting the main memory, so what the system can do is, so it can temporarily move that process to the some other memory segment. Here we call it as a backing store. So until that resource is available, so once it is available, so that is again loaded back to memory for the execution. So here what is this backing store? So this backing store is nothing but again a memory segment. It's a fast disk large enough to accommodate copies of all memory images of all users and must provide the direct access to these memory images. So here one more term we have, that is roll in and roll out. So as the name itself indicates, roll in means moving a process to the backing store, and roll out means uh, loading back the process from the backing store to the main memory. So it is swapping variant used for priority based scheduling algorithms, and the lower priority processes is swapped out, so higher priority processes can be loaded and executed. So major part of swap time is transfer time, and total transfer time is directly proportional to the amount of memory swapped. So as we know, the system maintains a ready queue of ready to run processes which have memory images on disk. So let us see how exactly this swapping is carried out with the help of a figure. So this is the schematic view of a swapping. Here you can see the one side we have the main memory, and another side we have the backing store. So this is a temporary disk storage where you can move a process which is not in execution. So here that can be shown here. So let us consider a particular process P1 is not in execution. So this can be swapped out to the backing store. So let us consider there is one more process P2 which is in backing store, but now you want to execute that process. So we have to load back this process P2 from this backing store to the main memory. So it can be shown like this. So next we'll see the continuous memory allocation. So in continuous memory allocation, so we know that the memory is usually partitioned into two partitions. The one is the resident operating system, usually held in low memory with interrupt vector. So this is the system memory, and another memory is for the user processes, which is held in the high memory. So in order to facilitate this contiguous allocation, so the system will be using certain registers. These are called as the relocation registers. So these relocation registers used to protect the user processes from each other and from changing operating system code and data. So here we have again the two type of registers as we saw in the previous concept in protection. So the registers are base register and the limit register. The base register contains the value of smallest physical address, and limit register contains the range. So starting from this base register, this limit register will denote the safe state for a particular process to use, or safe memory area to be used by the process. So here the MMU maps logical address dynamically to the physical address. This we saw already. So next we'll see the hardware support for this relocation and limit registers. So already in the previous slides we saw the use of MMU for the same. So let us combine that with the relocation register here. So here as usual we know that the CPU generates the logical addresses. So after that this limit register is going to check whether the request is in the required or in the allocated area, or there exists a trap, that is an error. If yes, then only it will be forwarded to the relocation register, which is going to add some value to this logical register to generate the physical address. So after that it is possible to access the memory. So next we'll continue the discussion of this contiguous allocation with the multiple partition allocation. So usually the one of the simplest methods for allocating memory is to divide the memory into the several fixed size partitions. So each partition may exactly contain one process, thus the degree of multiprogramming is bound by the number of partitions. So here whatever the memory that is available for the user processes, so that large memory block is considered as a whole. So this whole is a block of available memory, and holes of various size are scattered throughout the memory. So when a process arrives, it is allocated a memory from a hole large enough to accommodate it. So operating system maintains the information about the allocated partitions, and it also maintains the information about the free partitions, that is free